Almost 40 years after the film's release, we are finally getting new on-screen Dark Crystal goodness. Since the film's debut, there have been books on lore, graphic novels, canceled sequels and mangas, and even a board game. Age of Resistance, as we all know, is a prequel. But what do we need to know to optimize our viewing? Well, don't worry, I've got you covered. I'm Chris Carr, and here's your crash course in the Dark Crystal. Before we get to this epic tale, though, I want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors on Patreon, especially our super nerd sponsor of the day, Charles Sheed. Thanks to heroes like our dude Charles, we get to binge another day. If you like what you see and you want to help out, head on over to our Patreon page and see if a donation tier works for you. We'll thank you with shout outs, behind the scenes looks, and more. No funds to spare? No worries. Liking, sharing, and subscribing are fantastic ways to show some love. On to the crystal!
1,000 years ago, this land was green and good, until the crystal cracked.
Our OG source material is, of course, The Dark Crystal, a fantasy film about a young gelfling named Jen who must restore balance to Thra by repairing the broken Dark Crystal. Jen thinks he's the last gelfling, but no, there's another one named Kira who will help him on his quest. They'll save the day and restore balance.
You gelfling? Like me?
Well, yes.
But I thought I was the only one.
I thought I was.
What Age of Resistance is exploring, though, is what happened before we even met Jen. Everything is initially presented to us in the form of an opening monologue in the film, and honestly, it does a great job setting up the world. We get a succinct introduction to the world and then are immediately launched into the story. It's very well done, but 2 minutes to cover thousands of years? The Jim Henson Company has been pretty precious when it comes to the lore of their cult film. Only a few books and graphic novels have been even authorized to explore the world further. That being said, they cover quite a bit of ground. For the purposes of understanding Age of Resistance, I feel like we need to cover some basic creation mythology and explore the featured races who live on the world of Thra. So, no fizz gig in this video, y'all. I know, I'm bummed too. Let's start with the world we're on, Thra. Thra is the fantastical world housing all these creatures. Originally, Jim Henson named the planet Mithra, but when he learned that that was the name of the Iranian god of light, he opted to trim the name down to simply Thra. According to Thracian, sure, mythology, the world was created with a song, as universe can be broken down into uni, one, and verse, song. When the song began, it created a fire which in turn made 3 suns that Thra orbits. The Great Sun, the Rose Sun, and the Dying Sun. 3 suns. Suck it, Tatooine! After these stars formed, a single solitary planet with a powerful crystal at its center came into creation. The crystal essentially is the heart of Thra, serving as the life source of the planet, and linking all living things to it. For my Troll Hunter fans, think of it as the Heartstone. Or for my Avatar fans, the Tree of Souls. There's like 1,000 examples of this, so you get it, right? According to the world of the Dark Crystal, the trees of Thra grew restless without the ability to see or speak to the other inhabitants. So, Thra created Aughra from a tree to act as the world's guardian. I hadn't realized how important Aughra actually was until I started researching this piece. In the film The Dark Crystal, Aughra is basically a Yoda stand-in with boobs, complete with Frank Oz bringing the puppet to life. Aughra lives in isolation and motivates Jen, but Jen, like me, had no idea who she was. She's basically a god. I'm betting this character is going to be heavily featured in Age of Resistance after learning about her. In the Dark Crystal graphic novels, Aughra is described as the Great Mother. As I mentioned, Thra created her to bring knowledge, language, and understanding to the various species of the planet. While Aughra was revered, she was by no means worshipped. She roamed the planet, giving names to everything on it, much like Adam did in the Bible. Aughra particularly liked the race she would come to call Gelfling. The Gelfling are basically the equivalent to humans on Thra, as they're the most advanced species. They're non-violent and naive, and have a tendency to trust too quickly and not question power. This obviously is going to lead to some issues.
Everything the Skeksis ever told us was a lie. And now everyone and everything is at risk.
The Gelfling construct a matriarchal society, having their clans run by female leaders called Madras. We know thanks to IMDb that Lena Headey will be playing Madra Farah, and that Helena Bonham Carter will be playing All-Madra. The All-Madra is selected by the Skeksis to rule over multiple clans, so this is something definitely worth noting and will probably be an important point of conflict within the upcoming series. And, of course, a very notable thing about Gelfling.
Wings. I don't have wings.
Of course not. You're a boy.
Legend says that Aughra gifted the females with wings. She also taught them how to develop farming and hunting techniques, even worked with them to understand the nature of life itself. In exchange for her wisdom, the Gelfling would share one of their gifts, dream fasting. This allows the Gelfling to share memories and dreams through touch. Once Aughra had traveled across all of Thra, she decided to devote herself to the study of astronomy in order to make predictions of the future. This age of innocence would last 1,000 years. 1,000 years before the events of the Dark Crystal is when a mysterious group of life forms known as the Urskeks arrive. Basically, the Urskeks are aliens. Super smart interstellar beings who know a ton about Thra's crystal and other crystals throughout the known universe. These 18 Urskeks have been banished from society and chose to seek refuge on Thra as it was a primitive planet that they could cultivate in an effort to impress their homeworld. The Urskeks served as guardians of the crystal for 1,000 years during the Age of Harmony. They built Aughra her observatory, and while she did get to explore the stars, it also led to her not paying close attention to what was presently happening on Thra. Oh, we should also note that the Urskeks' arrival is what causes Aughra to lose an eye. She's blinded. So yeah, build her a telescope for her good eye, you chodes.
What's it for? Is that what you want to know? You want to know what this is all about?
The Urskeks took an interest in the Gelfling, advancing their society. The Gelfling were in awe of the Urskeks, and some even worshipped them. This is important to note. Of course the Gelfling would trust the Skeksis. They followed the Urskeks before. This now separate part of them couldn't be that bad. They were, though. They were really bad. They look evil. Gelflings are so stupid. The Urskeks were split apart when the crystal lost its shard and turned dark. This event is known as the Great Division, and is what sets in motion the Age of Division, which is where our new Netflix series will be taking place. The Urskeks became two separate races, the Uru, aka the Mystics, and the Skeksis, who I already mentioned. These races represented good and evil, and I've seen arguments as well of them representing the id and superego. Basically, this split is the physical representation of the duality within all of us, the proverbial angel and devil on the shoulder of Thra. As folks who have seen the Dark Crystal know, the Skeksis are our baddies. They've taken control of the crystal, are experimenting on it, and have claimed leadership over all of Thra. These nasty vulture-like creatures were inspired by the 7 deadly sins. Obviously repeating some of the sins since there's more than 7. Their bodies are actually pretty teeny and delicate, and the creatures choose to pad their bras, if you will, with feathers, jewels, and furs to appear larger than they really are. They're also known to wear headpieces made from the bones of other creatures. It's a strong way to show dominance. In keeping with that sin theme, the Skeksis are vain creatures who have used the power of the Dark Crystal to keep themselves young. Now eventually, this stops working, and the Skeksis turn to offering up Gelfling and Podling to steal their life essence. Oh, real quick, Podling are just like the sweet little Ferngully kind of characters on the planet, and they're supposed to just be really sweet and passive, and so they modeled them after potatoes. So potatoes are just...
The Podlings adopted me. They're my clan.
About 200 years prior to the events of the Dark Crystal, the Skeksis learn of a prophecy that a Gelfling would reunite the Crystal Shard and save Thra. The Skeksis are really enjoying where they're sitting, so they opt to wipe out all the Gelfling. They create crab-like creatures called Garthim and launch the Garthim War. This kills almost every last Gelfling. The Uru, on the other hand, are slow-moving, gentle creatures with 6 limbs, hunchbacks, and long necks. They're the peaceful counterpart. The Uru were dubbed the Mystics by the Gelfling, and were creative and healing. It's important to note for those not familiar with the mythology here, that the Uru and the Skeksis are still intrinsically tied. If an Uru dies, their Skeksis counterpart will die as well. After their division, the Uru fled to a valley. Though they still possess the mystic wisdom from when they were whole, they're no longer able to act and come to the aid of the world. They chose to live in seclusion and await the day that their bodies would once again be whole. Another character who may come into play that was in the comics is Aughra's son, Ronip. In the graphic novel series, The Dark Crystal Creation Myths from Boom Studios, it's said that Ronip was formed from alien material that fell from the sky about 2,000 years before the events of the film. He's a meteor, and he's Jesus. He's Finn from Adventure Time.
Yeah, I think so. A long time ago, I was you, sort of.
Ronip could fully see the Urskeks. He could see their divided nature, how they were having trouble controlling that nature, and he was the first to learn of their banishment. Robin tried to convince the Gelfling that they shouldn't trust the Urskeks and should reject their teachings. The Urskeks responded by saying, "Hey, it's time for us to go home." Unfortunately, this did not pan out. One of the Urskeks had darkness in their heart, which made the crystal reject all of them. This is what causes the crystal to shatter, knock the world out of balance, and cause the division of the Urskeks into the Uru and the Skeksis. Ronip and his mom witness the Skeksis' pure evil when one mercilessly kills an Uru to gain control over the crystal. Ronip and Aughra spend decades underground in search of the crystal shard to no avail. Aughra loses some of her memory, which is why she doesn't warn our heroes in Dark Crystal about how freaking evil the Skeksis are, and Ronip leaves to help Thra's other creatures. His name hasn't come up yet in Age of Resistance, but I'd rather make you guys aware of him, just in case. Basically, the big takeaway here is that everything happened because of aliens. As always, y'all, we are just scratching the surface on this topic. What else do you want to know about the Dark Crystal? What do you think is going to be imperative to your viewing of Age of Resistance? Let me know down below. For more videos, just click to the left of my face or check us out on Roku or Plex. A big thank you once again to all of our donors on Patreon, and thank you for watching. See you, Space Cowboy.